Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the Andel Arena in Grand Rapids, Michigan, while Rampage was taped from the Fertitta Center in Houston, Texas. And Smackdown tonight, as always with Smackdown, the show was god-awful, but history was made tonight, which I will get to. But Smackdown tonight, we had Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn, Gunther versus Drew Gulak. We had Raquel Rodriguez, smiley Raquel Rodriguez, coming out there, and she ended up taking on Shotzi. And we had Xavier Woods versus Butch. I lost count on how many times we've seen Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston go up against either Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch. How many times this year have we gotten the same fucking match with these guys? Are they going to drag this feud out until Big E comes back? And then when Big E comes back, they're going to set up for a six-man tag? Awful. And then in the main event, we had the winner-take-all match to unify the WWE Raw and Smackdown Tag Team Championship, the Usos versus RKBro, which I will get to explain about that. But overall, Smackdown, awful show tonight. But let's jump right into the review. Smackdown opened up tonight with the Bloodline. The Bloodline ended up making their way out. So Roman got on the mic and he ended up asking the fans in Grand Rapids to acknowledge him and also the Usos. So Roman got a mixed reaction from the fans there in Grand Rapids. Paul Heyman then got on the mic and he ended up declaring Roman is the greatest of all time. So Paul Heyman ended up running down a list of legends with the company. He listed names like Bruno Sammartino and Brock Lesnar, John Cena, The Rock. And Paul Heyman ended up saying that the tribal chief, Roman Reigns, is better than all those that he listed. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that he stands in the ring with the direct descendants of Afa and Sika, the Wild Samoans. And Paul Heyman ended up saying that they never unified the tag team championships, and that the Usos would be the first to do that. Reigns took the mic back from Paul Heyman, and Reigns ended up telling the Usos they know what he wants. Reigns ended up saying that he has high expectations for the Usos because he loves them. Of course, they're his cousins. So we had them all hug. And so we went backstage. Sami Zayn was watching on a monitor. And he walked down the hallway. And pretty much that was basically that. But Roman Reigns, confident that his cousins will be winning the winner-take-all match to unify both the Raw and Smackdown tag team titles. But that was that. Overall, it was a okay segment, to hype up the winner-take-all match. And then we had Shinsuke Nakamura come out. Nakamura ended up making his entrance as the Bloodline was heading up the aisle to go to the back. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had the first match of the night which was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. And this was a decent match here. So Sami Zayn ended up coming out, and the match got underway. Sami Zayn ended up hitting a shoulder block to Nakamura, ended up grabbing Nakamura into a headlock. Zayn ended up switching to an armbar, and Nakamura reversed that, flipped out of the armbar, and ended up putting Sami Zayn in a headlock. Sami Zayn ended up pushing Nakamura, and he ran into a shoulder block from Nakamura, and Nakamura delivered a kick to him. Nakamura was continuing to deliver some more kicks to Sami Zayn. Nakamura then ended up landing a knee drop to Sami Zayn. He went for the cover, to which Zayn kicked out at 2. Sami Zayn ended up taking control of the match by grabbing Nakamura's hair, and Sami Zayn ended up landing some punches. Zayn delivered a running clothesline to Nakamura as he went for the cover, to which Nakamura kicked out at 2. Sami Zayn then ended up choking Nakamura over the second rope. Zayn climbed up to the top rope, and Nakamura ended up cutting Sami Zayn off, and he climbed up to the second turnbuckle. Sami Zayn then ended up blocking the superplex attempt by Nakamura. He ended up laying an elbow to the back of Nakamura's head. So Nakamura fired back, and we had Sami Zayn end up crouching himself on the top turnbuckle, and he tumbled into the ring. Nakamura ended up trying to line up for the Kinshasa to Sami Zayn, but Sami Zayn avoided it and sent Nakamura out of the ring to the floor. So as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was in control of the match. He locked in a chin lock on Nakamura. Sami Zayn ended up missing a clothesline, to which Nakamura laid out Sami Zayn with the running kick. So both Zayn and Nakamura were down at this point. Nakamura got back up, and he started delivering some strikes to Sami Zayn. Nakamura hit a running German suplex to Sami Zayn while Sami Zayn was tied up in the ropes. Nakamura ended up following with a knee to the back of Sami Zayn's neck from the top rope. So Nakamura went for the cover, to which Sami Zayn kicked out at 2. So Nakamura was lining up to hit another Kinshasa to Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn ended up retreating out to the floor. So Nakamura ended up chasing Sami Zayn, but he ran right into a Michinoku driver by Sami Zayn. So Nakamura barely ended up beating the ref's count to the outside. So Sami Zayn ended up booting Nakamura back out of the ring. Nakamura reversed a whip and sent Sami Zayn into the ring post. Nakamura then tossed Sami Zayn into the timekeeper's area. So Nakamura was in the ring. Sami Zayn ended up barely beating the ref's count back into the ring, but Sami Zayn got back in, and Nakamura ended up laying out Sami Zayn with the Kinshasa. Nakamura ended up going for the pin, and there you go. Shinsuke Nakamura ended up winning the match. Overall, was a decent match, and Sami Zayn still continues to lose on TV. And then we had Happy Talk, Shit Talk with Corbin. Oh, great. Oh, great. It's like every single week we're getting a Happy Talk segment. Boy, they really want to suffer us. They really do. So Corbin was in the ring. He had a mic in hand. He was standing at ringside with the Andre the Giant trophy. Corbin ended up saying that this is the happiest he's ever been. He ended up saying that he's wearing a $12,000 hat and a $70,000 watch. Who cares? Who cares? Corbin ended up saying that he's also rid the WWE of Madcap Moss. So Corbin ended up showing us a replay of him attacking Moss last week. Corbin ended up saying that Moss was living the good life when he was by his side. He kept saying that Moss wanted to be a star and to step out of his shadow, but he never appreciated all the good things he did for him. So Corbin then picked up the trophy and he chucked it against the ring steps, and the trophy broke in half. Corbin ended up leaving the trophy in pieces on the floor, and he only held up the statue of Andre the Giant, which is the top of the trophy. The top of the trophy has Andre the Giant on it, so he held that up, and he got boos from the crowd, and pretty much that was basically that. But awful segment, awful, awful, awful. Yawn and snore, it was. So then after this awful Happy Talk segment, we had a recap from last week where we saw Gunther end up laying out Drew Gulak backstage, where Gunther ended up ripping Drew Gulak's shirt and laying Gulak with a huge chop. So we saw that. And then we had Ludwig Kaiser roll. He ended up introducing Gunther, aka Walter. So they ended up making their way down to the ring, and then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, we had Gunther versus Drew Gulak. Squash match. So Gunther delivered a chop to Drew Gulak, and Gunther ended up pulling Gulak back and laid some more chops to Gulak. Gulak ended up crawling to his feet, and Gunther ended up laying Gulak out with a powerbomb, and that was that. Gunther ended up winning the match. Like I said, squash match. Post-match, Gunther ended up putting Drew Gulak in a Boston Crab. Ricochet then ran out, and Gunther and Ludwig Kaiser left the ring, and Ricochet ended up checking on Drew Gulak, and that was that. But Gulak, you can already tell, he's getting buried. He's been buried. You can tell that he's going to be on the next set of WWE releases, which will possibly be coming soon. And then we saw Adam Pearce backstage. Adam Pearce ended up getting a visitor in his office, and that was LA Knight. Oh, I'm sorry. He was formerly known as LA Knight. Once again, WWE changing a superstar's name for no reason. He was LA Knight down in NXT, and he is now being known as Max Dupree. Max Dupree is what they're calling LA Knight now. Awful. God awful. So he ended up saying that he's the head of Maximum Male Models. He ended up saying that his clients can headline Paris Fashion Week or WrestleMania. So Dupree ended up saying that he was bought in by Sonya Deville before she lost her job as an official. So Dupree ended up telling Adam Pearce that they signed a contract. So pretty much that was basically that. So LA Knight, or Max Dupree, made his debut on SmackDown tonight. But WWE, once again, typical WWE, with changing superstars' names for no reason. They should have just kept him as LA Knight instead of calling him Max Dupree. With his last name Dupree, are they going to make him come out there and speak a little French? Are they going to bring back La Resistance and pair them up with him, considering his last name is Dupree? Oh my God, this is so awful. They should have just kept him as LA Knight. They should have just kept his name as LA Knight. Max Dupree. You kidding me? So then we had Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton was backstage, and she was going to interview RKBro, Orton and Riddle, who they are taking on the Usos in the winner-take-all match to unify the Raw and Smackdown tag team titles later on in the night. So Riddle ended up telling Kayla Braxton that he's feeling very confident heading into the winner-take-all match tonight. So pretty much that was basically that. And then we had Shotzi and Aaliyah. Shotzi and Aaliyah were still arguing over how they should have been the ones to face Ronda Rousey last week. So Raquel Rodriguez came in. Smiley Raquel Rodriguez. So Shotzi was insulting Raquel Rodriguez. And then Raquel ended up making her way out. Of course, smiling. And then Shotzi ended up making her way out. So then we had Raquel Rodriguez versus Shotzi, which this was boring. This was absolutely boring. Raquel Rodriguez, she overpowered on Shotzi and slammed her into the corner. Of course, Raquel, while she's doing moves, smiling. Yeah, that's what she does. After she does a move, smiles. So Raquel ended up lifting Shotzi by her one arm, and she ended up slamming Shotzi down. Shotzi ended up trying to fire back with some forearms, and she tried to do a sunset flip, but Raquel lifted her up and slammed Shotzi into the corner. Shotzi then ended up catching Raquel in a triangle choke over the top rope, but Raquel ended up pulling Shotzi away from the ropes. Shotzi ended up switching to a rear naked choke, but Raquel ended up slamming Shotzi down into the corner. Shotzi then fired off with some kicks, but Raquel ended up delivering a pair of fallaway slams on Shotzi. Raquel then ended up hitting the Chingona bomb on Shotzi. She ended up going for the cover, and there you go. Raquel Rodriguez ended up winning the match. Overall, boring match, and Shotzi is going to be another one that's going to be on the next set of releases. You can already tell. And then we had Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton was backstage with Xavier Woods, and they ended up showing a replay of last week of Butch winning the match over Kofi last week. So Xavier Woods ended up saying that he's flying solo because Kofi is on official New Day business. So Xavier ended up encouraging Butch to come alone and not have Sheamus or Ridge Holland out there. So him and Butch could just go one-on-one. So then Xavier Woods ended up making his way out. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Butch was backstage, or Pete Dunne. He was getting fired up with Sheamus and Ridge Holland. And their group, Butch, Sheamus, and Ridge Holland, their group is now known as the Brawlin' Brutes. That's what they're being called, because there was a graphic that said Butch's name, and underneath it, it said Brawlin' Brutes. So that's what Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch are now being known as. So Butch ended up making his way out, and then we had Xavier Woods versus Butch. And I'm like, I lost count on how many times this year we've seen Xavier Woods, Kofi Kingston, Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch go at it. I lost count. I expect that this feud to drag out, with Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch and Kofi and Xavier Woods. They're going to drag out this feud until Big E is ready to come back. And when Big E comes back, watch, they're going to set up a 6-man tag. So we're going to get the New Day versus Butch, Ridge Holland, and Sheamus, the Brawling Brutes. Watch that happen. I sense that's what WWE is going to do. They're going to drag this feud out until Big E comes back and we get a 6-man tag. So the match started off with Butch charging at Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods ended up avoiding him, and Xavier Woods ended up sending Butch to the outside. Woods followed up with a drop kick through the middle and top ropes to Butch. Xavier Woods grabbed Butch by the ear, sent him back into the ring. Butch recovered to catch Xavier Woods coming back into the ring, started pounding away with some forearms to Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods tried to do a roll-up, but Butch ended up kicking out. Butch then retook control of the match. He ended up using a modified bow and arrow to ground Xavier Woods down. Butch locked in a chin lock on Xavier Woods as Woods ended up fighting to his feet. Butch ended up slapping Xavier Woods in the face. So he ended up charging into a boot by Woods. And Woods followed up with a clothesline. And he went for the cover, to which Butch ended up kicking out. Xavier Woods ended up chopping Butch against the ropes. And he ended up lifting Butch on his shoulders. Butch then raked the eyes of Xavier Woods to escape. So he ended up draping Xavier Woods over the top rope. He climbed to the second rope. And Butch ended up missing a flying knee. So Xavier Woods tried to go for a leaping DDT. He ended up getting hit with a knee by Butch. So Xavier Woods ended up catching Butch with the backwoods small package out of nowhere. And he got the win. Xavier Woods ended up getting the win. So Butch, post-match, he ended up leaving through the crowd, pissed off that he lost. So Xavier Woods is celebrating on the stage. And then Sheamus and Ridge Holland end up appearing behind Xavier Woods. Butch then came out of nowhere. He ended up attacking Xavier Woods. And Butch, Sheamus, and Ridge Holland end up laying Xavier Woods out. And pretty much that was basically that. But how many times are we going to see Butch, Sheamus, Ridge Holland go at it with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston? Like I said, they're going to drag this feud out until Big E comes back. And when Big E comes back, 6-man tag. Watch. And then after that, that'll be the end of the feud. God. Give us something new and something fresh other than this shit every single week. What are we going to get? Are we going to get Kofi and Xavier versus Sheamus and Ridge Holland next week? Or are we going to get them versus Sheamus or Butch? Or Butch or Ridge Holland teaming up? Enough. Enough. I am tired of this feud. I really am. Let's move on. But no, they're going to drag out this feud, like I said, until Big E comes back. Awful. Absolutely awful. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Mega Morant was backstage. Mega Morant caught up with Xavier Woods. Xavier Woods ended up telling Mega Morant that Kofi will be back next week. And that Big E is still injured. So Kofi ended up telling Mega Morant that he's going to find a third person for a 6-man tag for next week. So we're getting a 6-man tag next week against Sheamus, Ridge Holland, and Butch. And who that third person will be, watch it be Drew McIntyre. It's obviously going to be him. So great, a 6-man tag next week. Sounds exciting, doesn't it? So then we had Michael Cole on commentary. And Michael Cole, he had Vince McMahon in his ear here. Because Michael Cole ended up saying that Sasha Banks and Naomi let us all down. Because Sasha and Naomi, if you know, during this week, they walked out on Monday Night Raw because of creative differences. There was supposed to be a six-pack challenge, and Naomi was supposed to pin Sasha originally, but Sasha did not like that. She went to Vince McMahon, and Vince wanted to go with that idea of Naomi pinning Sasha, and Sasha didn't want that. And so Sasha and Naomi end up walking out of the arena. They took the women's tag team titles, they laid the tag team titles out on John Laurinaitis' desk and walked out. And apparently, Sasha Banks and Naomi, reports came out earlier today that Sasha Banks and Naomi are suspended indefinitely from WWE. And their contracts are going to be up this summer, from what I heard. So, if that's true, Sasha's not re-signing with the company. Tony Khan is going to be giving Sasha Banks a call. And we probably might see Sasha Banks in AEW before All Out. So watch that be the case. And because of this happening, Michael Cole ended up saying that both women are suspended indefinitely, and that a tournament will be held to crown new women's tag team champions. So let me get this straight. You're going to have a tournament for the women's tag team titles to crown new champions. Hello? Vince, Bruce Pritchard, and anybody in WWE Creative? There is no division! There is none. Who do you got to be in the tournament? You have Nikki ASH and Doudrop. You have Natalya and Shayna Baszler. And you have Carmella and Zelina Vega. Wait a minute. Didn't they split them up? Oh, WWE wants us to forget that they split up Carmella and Zelina Vega. So watch them be in this tournament. And watch. They're going to put the tag team titles back on Carmella and Zelina. Watch. Watch they do that. Well, I don't know why we are getting a tournament. There is no fucking division. These titles need to be retired. Unbelievable. Having a tournament to crown new women's tag team champions when there's no fucking division. Main event. Winners take all tag team unification match to unify the Raw and Smackdown Tag Team Championship. RKBro, Randy Orton and Riddle versus the Usos. And this was a decent match. Paul Heyman was on commentary during it. So Riddle and Jimmy end up starting off. Riddle and Orton end up taking control with some quick tags, and they did a double team on Jimmy. Jimmy ended up cutting off the offense and started grounding Riddle. He then locked in a chin lock on Riddle, and Riddle ended up injuring his hip because the referee ended up throwing up the X sign, and a doctor ended up coming into the ring to look at Riddle. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, the Usos were double teaming on Riddle as Michael Cole on commentary informed us about Riddle injuring his hip, and that was why he was being checked out by the doctor. And Paul Heyman on commentary, he complimented on Riddle's toughness. So the Usos were working on Riddle's hip and his lower back. They ended up doing a double headbutt to Riddle. So Jimmy ended up stomping away on Riddle while he was down. He ended up going for a waist lock on Riddle. Riddle ended up fighting to his feet out of the waist lock, and He had pinned a knee to break the offense of Jimmy, and he then ended up taking an Orton. Orton ended up laying out the Usos with power slams. So Orton ended up doing the draping DDT on Jay. He then hit the RKO on Jimmy, and Orton ended up going for the cover, to which Jay ended up breaking up the pin. Jay then ended up dragging Jimmy to his corner and tagged in. Riddle then tagged in and hit a overhead kick to Jay, and then he did some run of forearms in the corner on Jay. Riddle then ended up going for the senton, and Jay ended up getting his knees up, and Jay followed up with a neck breaker, and Jay ended up going for the cover, to which Riddle ended up kicking out. So Jay then charged into a back elbow by Riddle. Riddle climbed up to the top rope, and Jay ended up kicking out his leg, and Riddle ended up crashing down to the mat. Jay then climbed to the top rope. Riddle ended up running up the corner to the top rope, and Jimmy ended up blocking Riddle going for a super RKO. Roman Reigns then ended up appearing. Reigns ended up grabbing Jay's leg, and Riddle ended up falling off the top rope. So Jay followed up with a splash from the top rope onto Riddle, and he ended up going for the pin. And there you go. The Usos made history, and the Usos are the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. Post-match, Reigns ended up stomping on Riddle. The Usos then end up laying out Orton with some super kicks. Reigns then took apart the commentary table. Reigns ended up locking in the guillotine on Riddle. And Riddle was laid out on the commentary table. Jey Uso climbed to the top rope. And Jay ended up delivering a splash onto Riddle, and Riddle went through the commentary table. Reigns then locked in the guillotine on Orton, and they end up leaving Orton, or Reigns ended up leaving Orton laying on the floor. So RKBro were decimated by the Bloodline. So then the Bloodline came into the ring. They ended up grabbing the titles and posed in the middle of the ring. And that was how Smackdown went off the air. Overall, this was a decent match. And we got a clean win here. And many of us thought that WWE would do a fuck finish with this match, where the match would end in a DQ or a no contest. And if it did, we would get this match again at Hell in a Cell, only for it to be inside Hell in a Cell. But that wasn't the case here. You know, we didn't get a DQ, we didn't get a no contest, and we're not going to get this match at Hell in a Cell. Maybe there will be a rematch, and they'll possibly put it on the Hell in a Cell card, so we'll probably get that. But the Usos made history, and they are the undisputed WWE Tag Team Champions. But overall, Smackdown, awful show tonight. It's Smackdown. What do you expect? The show is awful every single week. Smackdown is one of the worst pro wrestling shows on TV. It used to belong to Monday Night Raw, but now Smackdown took that top for being the worst pro wrestling show on television. Moving on to Rampage. AEW Rampage was a good show tonight. We had the House of Black in action, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews, and they ended up taking on Evil Uno, 10, and Fuego del Sol, Jobber del Sol. We had Shawn Spears in action, where he ended up taking on a giant, but I'll get to explaining that, who it was. We had the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament quarterfinals match, Kris Statlander versus Red Velvet, when originally this was supposed to be Hikaru Shida versus Red Velvet. But of course, Hikaru Shida got injured, And so Kris Statlander ended up replacing her. And in the main event, we had Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley versus Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. Overall, Rampage was a good show tonight. Rampage opened up tonight with the House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews versus Evil Uno, 10, and Fuego del Sol, Jobber del Sol, as what we like to call him. And this was an enjoyable trios match here. Brody King and Evil Uno started off the match. Evil Uno ended up delivering a chop to Brody King, and Brody King ended up shrugging Evil Uno off. Evil Uno ended up managing to do a head scissor takedown on Brody King. Brody King ended up overpowering Evil Uno on a shoulder tackle attempt, and we had Brody King end up bringing Evil Uno over to his corner, and Malachi Black ended up tagging in. Malachi Black delivered some strikes to Evil Uno. Evil Uno retaliated with a shoulder tackle to Malachi Black, and Evil Uno tagged in 10. 10 came in and ended up hitting Malachi Black with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex. So 10 ended up sending Malachi Black into his corner. Black fighted out of the corner and locked on a heel hook onto 10. 10 managed to escape the heel hook, and he delivered some chops to Malachi Black, and Fuego del Sol tagged in. Black ended up overpowering on Fuego and tagged in Buddy Matthews. Buddy Matthews ended up pinning a double stomp from top rope onto the back of Fuego del Sol's head. Buddy Matthews ended up delivering Penta's arm breaker that he does, and Buddy Matthews also did the Cero Miedo taunt. So Buddy Matthews ended up trying to stomp on Fuego's arm. Fuego escaped and tagged in Evil Uno. Evil Uno came in. He ended up running into a boot from Buddy Matthews. Brody King tagged in, and Brody ended up hitting the senton. And Brody King and Buddy Matthews ended up landing kicks to Evil Uno. Brody King lifted Evil Uno onto his shoulders, and Evil Uno ended up escaping and tagged back in Fuego. King ended up knocking Fuego off the ring apron out to the floor. And as Rampage came back from commercial, Fuego ended up hitting a Spanish fly on Buddy Matthews, which looked awesome. Fuego then tagged in 10. Buddy Matthews then tagged in Malachi Black. 10 ended up going away on Buddy Matthews and Black. Brody King ended up sneaking in with a waistlock on 10, and 10 ended up escaping out of it, and 10 ended up clotheslining Brody King to the floor. 10 ended up ducking a spinning kick by Malachi Black. Him and Evil Uno ended up doing a double team on Malachi Black, and 10 ended up going for the cover, to which Black kicked out at 2. So at the end of the match, we had 10 and Fuego del Sol. They ended up trying to run at Brody King, but Brody King ended up dispatching both 10 and Fuego. Brody King ended up catching Evil Uno with a big lariat and a Genso bomb, and Brody King ended up going for the cover. And there you go. The House of Black ended up winning the match. Post-match, the Death Triangle ended up coming out and ended up posing on the stage, and there was a cloth underneath something on the stage. So Penta ended up lifting the cloth, and it was revealed to be a tombstone. And the tombstone ended up saying House of Black at Double or Nothing. So that was the reveal. It was a tombstone that said House of Black, Double or Nothing. But overall, it was an enjoyable trios match. And then we had Lexi Nair. Lexi Nair was with the Gun Club and Max Caster. Apparently, Anthony Bowens was injured on AEW Dark Elevation, and there was a clip of that. So Billy Gunn ended up saying that he hopes Anthony Bowens gets well soon, so that they can have a big scissor party. So pretty much that was that. Just letting everybody know that Anthony Bowens got injured on Dark Elevation. And then, as Rampage came back from the commercial, we saw Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage with FTR, Dax Harwood, and Cash Wheeler. And FTR ended up agreeing to defend the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles against Roppongi Vice on Dynamite this Wednesday. So we're going to be seeing that match on Wednesday. FTR versus Roppongi Vice. Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles on the line. Should be a good match between these teams. And then we had Shawn Spears. Shawn Spears was on the stage, sitting in the chair during his entrance. And he made his way to the ring to have a match with a mystery giant. And the mystery giant was revealed to be Big Damo. Big Damo. He was known as Killian Dane in WWE. Of course, he is married to Nikki ASH. So it was awesome seeing Damo again and on AEW television. But this was a squash match. Damo ended up hitting a dive from the ring apron and took down Shawn Spears on the floor. Damo ended up landing a run of senton to Shawn Spears. And he was going for the Vader Bomb, to which Spears ended up moving out of the way. Spears ended up hitting a knee to Damo's jaw. And Spears ended up hoisting Damo up. And he ended up hitting the C4. And Shawn Spears ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Shawn Spears ended up winning the match. Post-match, Shawn Spears got on the mic. He ended up saying that he's Wardlow's kryptonite. And, of course, on Dynamite this Wednesday, Shawn Spears and Wardlow are going to be in a match. It's going to be inside a steel cage. And MJF is going to be the special guest referee. So that should be a good match on Wednesday on Dynamite. Steel cage match. Looking forward to it. But overall, it was a squash match between Shawn Spears and Big Damo. Big Damo just came to take the loss. But it was cool seeing Damo again. It's been a while since I've seen him on TV. And then we saw the Undisputed Elite. Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, Bobby Fish, and the Young Bucks were backstage. Adam Cole ended up saying that feeling like he versus Kyle O'Reilly in the final of the Owen Hart Foundation tournament is a pretty safe bet. So the Young Bucks end up saying that they are challenging the Hardys to a match at Double or Nothing. So that's a dream match right there. The Bucks versus the Hardys. That should be a awesome, good match there between them. Like I said, it's a dream match. But we're going to be seeing that at Double or Nothing. And the Double or Nothing card is looking very good. And the build to it has been also very good also. So then we had the Owen Hart Foundation Women's Tournament Quarterfinal match. Red Velvet versus Kris Statlander. Red Velvet came out along with Jade Cargill, Kiera Hogan, and Mark Sterling, which Mark Sterling still was walking with a crutch. And this was really supposed to be Red Velvet versus Hikaru Shida. But because Hikaru Shida got injured, they actually replaced her with Kris Statlander. So this was a solid women's match here. Ruby Soho was on commentary for the match, and whoever won this match will get to face Ruby Soho. So Kris Statlander ended up powering Red Velvet into the corner. Red Velvet ended up climbing up to the second rope. Statlander ended up bringing Red Velvet out with a press slam. She ended up dropping Red Velvet. Red Velvet ended up going for a head scissor, but Statlander ended up overpowering on Red Velvet. Red Velvet ended up going out to the floor. Statlander ended up trying to follow it up with a baseball slide drop kick to Red Velvet, but Red Velvet pulled the ring apron to catch Kris Statlander, and so Red Velvet ended up getting in some shots on Statlander. Red Velvet ended up going for a crossbody off the apron, and Kris Statlander ended up catching Red Velvet and tosses her back into the ring right in front of Cargill, Kiera Hogan, and Mark Sterling, which they were sitting on the floor there. So then as Rampage came back from the commercial, Statlander ended up hitting a running boot and a German suplex to Red Velvet. Statlander ended up going for the cover, to which Velvet ended up kicking out at 2. Statlander ended up poisoning up Red Velvet for a delayed vertical suplex, but Red Velvet ended up kneeing Kris Statlander in the head to escape out of that. Red Velvet ended up hitting the final slice onto Statlander. Red Velvet ended up going for the cover, to which Statlander ended up kicking out. Red Velvet ended up missing a punch to Statlander, and Statlander ended up hitting the Blue Thunder Bomb on Red Velvet. So Statlander ended up going for the cover, to which Red Velvet kicked out too. Red Velvet ended up retreating to the ring apron and pulled Statlander's neck over the top rope. So Red Velvet ended up hitting a pair of running knees to Statlander. She planted Statlander face first, and she ended up going for the cover, to which Statlander kicked out. So at the end of the match, Velvet ended up reversing the Big Bang Theory by Statlander. Statlander ended up reversing the reversal and got in the pin. And there you go. Kris Statlander ended up winning the match. Post-match, Cargill and Kiera Hogan ended up attacking Kris Statlander. Ruby Soho ended up running down from the commentary table to try to help Kris Statlander. But Cargill ended up taking down Ruby Soho. And, of course, the baddies, Red Velvet and Kiera Hogan, ended up taking control. Anna Jay ended up running out. Anna Jay ran down to the ring and chased off Jade Cargill and the baddies. And that was basically that. But overall, solid women's match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament for the women. And next week, we're going to see Ruby Soho versus Kris Statlander. And that should be a good match there. Even though I like both of them, I would like to see Ruby Soho win the match for next week. So that's my pick. And then after that, we had a video package of Tony Nese and Mark Sterling and Danhausen and Hook. All these guys were training for their match, which is going to be on the buy-in at Double or Nothing. So we saw that. And then we had Ethan Page, Scorpio Sky, and Dan Lambert. They were in the ring. Scorpio Sky got on the mic, and he wanted Sammy Guevara to bring back his TNT Championship. And so Sammy Guevara and Tay Conti were outside the arena. So Sammy Guevara ended up saying that he wants a title match against Scorpio Sky. So Dan Lambert ended up declining that. So Guevara had the TNT Championship, and Guevara ended up smashing the TNT Championship with a sledgehammer. So Frankie Kazarian ended up coming there. Frankie Kazarian dressed in a suit, and Frankie Kazarian also smashed the belt. So pretty much that was basically that. But this whole thing with the TNT Championship, I'm like, what's going on here? Sammy Guevara here, it looked like they're making Sammy Guevara a baby face when, he's supposed to be a heel. And I'm like, they have Scorpio Sky, go back to being a heel after what we saw, last week, where he ended up attacking his former partner, Frankie Kazarian. So I'm like, they don't know what to do with Sammy Guevara. This whole thing surrounding the TNT Championship, it's like, what are they doing? What are they doing? So then we went to Tony Schiavone. Tony Schiavone was backstage with Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, and Tony Storm. Tony Schiavone was chatting with them about their semifinal match in the Owen Hart Foundation tournament. And Tony Storm ended up telling Britt Baker that there better be no funny business from Rebel or Jamie Hayter when her and Britt Baker meet in the ring in the semifinal match. So that was basically that. So we're going to be getting that, the semifinal match, Britt Baker versus Tony Storm. Should be a good match. And then we have Mark Henry. Mark Henry was chatting with Dante Martin, Matt Sydal, Bryan Danielson, and Jon Moxley. So Dante Martin ended up saying that he wants a signature win. Matt Sydal ended up saying that he wants to prove violence isn't the only answer. Bryan ended up saying that he loves peace, but he also loves violence in his pro wrestling. Jon Moxley ended up saying that he and Bryan are teachers, and the most important lesson is to abandon all hope when facing the Blackpool Combat Club. So that was what they had to say. And then they went over what we're going to see this Wednesday on Dynamite, which is going to be the 3-year anniversary of AEW. So we're going to be seeing 2 Owen Hart Foundation tournament semifinal matches. It's going to be Samoa Joe versus Kyle O'Reilly. That's going to be a good match there. We're going to see Tony Storm versus Dr. Britt Baker. Hangman Page and CM Punk will be face-to-face. And loving what they're doing with Page and Punk, going into Double or Nothing for the AEW World Championship. Of course, we're going to be getting the steel cage match, Shawn Spears versus Wardlow, and MJF is going to be the special guest referee. And we're going to have Roppongi Vice versus FTR, where the Ring of Honor World Tag Team title is going to be on the line. And we're going to get Jungle Boy versus Swerve Strickland versus Ricky Starks. So all that's taking place this Wednesday on Dynamite. And then next Friday on Rampage, we're going to get Kris Statlander versus Ruby Soho in the Owen Hart Foundation Tournament semifinal match. So, but like I said, we want to see Ruby Soho win that match, even though I like both of them. And then they announced we have 3 new matches announced for Double or Nothing. So we're going to be getting Anna Jay versus Jay Cargill for the TBS Championship. The Young Bucks versus the Hardys. That's a dream match there. like I said. And we're going to be seeing the Death Triangle versus House of Black. So those 3 matches were added to the Double or Nothing card. And then we have the main event. Bryan Danielson and Jon Moxley versus Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. And this was a good match here. Bryan started off against Dante Martin, started beating him down for a few moments, and Bryan ended up tagging in Moxley. Moxley ended up hitting a running kick to Dante Martin. He ended up going for the cover, to which Dante Martin kicked out at 1. Moxley then followed up with a vertical suplex to Martin, and he ended up going for the cover, and Martin ended up kicking out at 2. Moxley then tagged in Bryan. Bryan then went to work on Dante Martin's leg, and Bryan ended up working that into the surfboard submission on Martin. Bryan ended up pounding on the back of Martin's neck as he tagged in Moxley. Moxley ended up landing some punches on Martin in the corner, leaned on him with a knee to the face. So Martin then ended up tagging in Matt Sydal. Matt Sydal ended up hitting a spinning kick on Moxley, and he then went for a reverse DDT and a standing twist and moonsault onto Moxley. He ended up going for the cover. Moxley kicked out at 2. Moxley then ended up catching Matt Sydal, hanged him on the top rope. Moxley ended up sending Sydal to the outside, and Bryan ended up hitting a knee from the ring apron. As Rampage came back from the commercial, Dante Martin ended up hitting a dive to the floor on both Bryan and Moxley. So Martin ended up hitting a crossbody from the top rope on Bryan back in the ring. So we had Dante Martin ended up going for the cover, and Moxley ended up breaking up the pin. Moxley ended up taking down Matt Sydal on the floor with a rear naked choke. Bryan ended up hitting a double underhook suplex on Dante Martin from the top rope, which looked cool. Bryan ended up putting Dante Martin in the label lock. So Dante Martin got to the ropes to break the hold for Bryan to break up the label lock. Bryan ended up firing away with some kicks to Dante Martin's chest, and he tagged in Moxley. Moxley then hoisted up Dante Martin, and Sydal ended up intercepting Bryan with a spinning kick. Sydal ended up hitting a Meteora onto Bryan on the ring apron, and Martin ended up hitting a nosedive on Moxley, and Dante Martin ended up going for the cover. Bryan ended up breaking out the pin. So at the end of the match, we had Moxley end up grabbing Dante Martin, and he started delivering some elbow strikes, and Moxley ended up following it up with a paradigm shift on Dante Martin. And so he went for the cover, and there you go. Bryan and Moxley ended up winning the match. Overall, this was a decent match here between Bryan, Moxley, and Dante Martin and Matt Sydal. Post-match, we had a brawl ensue between the Jericho Appreciation Society and Bryan and Moxley. And then Eddie Kingston, Santana Ortiz came out, and we had a brawl between these guys. And Rampage went off the air quickly, and they cut this off of TV. But apparently, after the Rampage taping was done on Wednesday night, video surfaced of Bryan Danielson getting injured. And his foot, Bryan's foot, was trapped between the ring and the ramp. And he couldn't get it out. And so, I guess, crew guys that work on the ramp and maybe put together the ring, they had to take pieces of the ramp off to get Bryan's foot out of it. So, I guess Bryan is injured because of that. So, that was what took place, and they didn't show it on TV, but there's a video of it surfaced online, an article that came out after they shot Rampage on Wednesday after Dynamite. So just type it in, you'll probably find it. So that's what went down. Bryan's leg got caught between the ring and the ramp. But that was Rampage. Overall, very good show. Rampage was. But anyways, that's it for my review of SmackDown and AEW Rampage. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.